The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council was the most impressive room in the known universe. It sat at the heart of Station Zenith, a massive space station floating in neutral space. The chamber was round and enormous, with seats rising up in circles like a giant bowl. Representatives from 300 species filled those seats. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some had scales, some had feathers, some were made of living crystal. Some floated in special tanks filled with strange liquids. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform. This was where species came to receive judgment from the Council. Today, for the first time in galactic history, humans stood on that platform. There were 3 of them. Ambassador Elena Cross stood in the middle. She was a tall woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple black suit. No decorations, no medals. To her left stood General Marcus Stone, a large man with a scarred face and hands that never stopped moving. To her right stood Dr. Sarah Chen, a small woman who kept looking around at everything with curious eyes. High Magistrate Vexillar looked down at them from the highest seat. He was a Corthan, a species that looked like a tall insect with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected light like broken mirrors. He had ruled the Council for 200 years. No species had ever defied him. He did not expect these soft pink creatures to be any different. "Humans of Earth," Vexillar said. His voice echoed through the chamber. Translator devices turned his clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. "You have been brought here to answer for your crimes against galactic law." Ambassador Cross did not move. She did not blink. "We were not aware we had committed any crimes, High Magistrate. Perhaps you could explain?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. Many species found human ignorance amusing. Vexillar raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "Your species has developed faster-than-light travel without permission from this council. You have colonized 7 planets in the outer regions without filing proper documents. You have made contact with 4 species without going through approved channels. These are serious violations." "I see," Cross said. Her voice remained calm. "And what is the punishment for these violations?" Vexillar leaned forward. His compound eyes glittered with cold satisfaction. "Your colonies will be seized. Your ships will be destroyed. Your home planet will be placed under permanent quarantine. Your species will be forbidden from ever leaving your solar system again. You will provide workers for our mining operations as payment for the resources you have stolen." The chamber was silent. Every species remembered seeing this happen before. Young races always thought they were special. They always learned the truth the hard way. General Stone's hands stopped moving. Chen stopped looking around. Ambassador Cross tilted her head slightly to one side. "That is your final decision?" Cross asked. "It is. There is no room for negotiation?" "None. You are a young species. You do not understand how the galaxy works. We have maintained order for 10,000 years. You will submit, or you will be destroyed. Those are your only options." Cross was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket. Every guard in the chamber raised their weapons. Vexillar did not flinch. He had seen this before too. Young species sometimes tried violence. It never worked. The council chamber was the most protected place in the galaxy. Energy shields, armed guards from a dozen species, automated defense systems. Nothing could threaten them here. Cross pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple black rectangle. "High Magistrate," she said, "before you make this official, I feel I should tell you something about humanity. Something your intelligence reports may have missed." "Nothing you say will change our decision." "I understand, but I would like you to know anyway." Cross looked around the chamber slowly. "You see, when we first discovered we were not alone in the universe, we were very excited. We hoped to find friends, partners, teachers who could help us grow." "How touching," Vexillar said. More laughter from the crowd. "But we also prepared for the possibility that we would find something else." Cross held up the device. "We have been watching your council for 3 years now. We have studied your technology, your politics, your military forces. We have learned a great deal. For the first time, something like uncertainty flickered across Vexillar's face. What is that device? This is just a communicator. Cross smiled. It was not a warm smile. I am going to use it to send a single word to a ship waiting outside this station. Just one word. Your ships were destroyed when you entered our space. No, the ships you saw were destroyed. There is a difference. Vexillar stood up. Guards, seize that device. The guards moved forward. General Stone took one step to the side. It should not have mattered. He was one man against 50 armed guards. But somehow, impossibly, every guard who got close to him ended up on the floor. He moved like water. He moved like smoke. He did not seem to be trying very hard. Dr. Chen had produced a small scanner from somewhere. She was reading the results with great interest. Fascinating, she murmured. The energy shields use a rotating frequency. Very clever. Every 43 seconds, there is a gap of about 2 milliseconds. Ambassador Cross pressed a button on her device. She spoke one word. Begin. The lights in the chamber flickered. Vexillar looked up at the ceiling. For the first time in 200 years, he felt fear. What have you done? I have done nothing, High Magistrate. I have simply informed my people that diplomacy has failed. Cross put the device back in her pocket. What happens next is not my decision. The chamber shook. A sound like thunder rolled through the walls. The great viewport that showed the stars suddenly filled with light. Ships, dozens of them, hundreds of them. They appeared from nowhere, as if space itself had opened up and released them. They were human ships, but they did not look like the small vessels the Council had seen before. These were massive, dark, covered in weapons that no one in the chamber could identify. Vexillar stared at the viewport. His mandibles clicked together in confusion. That is impossible. You cannot have a fleet that size. Our reports said you had fewer than 50 ships. Your reports were wrong, Cross said. That was on purpose. The chamber shook again. This time, the lights went out completely. Emergency lights came on, painting everything in red. Alarms began to scream. And then the real attack began. The attack came from everywhere at once. High Magistrate Vexillar had lived for 300 years. He had seen wars. He had seen rebellions. He had seen desperate species fight against the Council with everything they had. They always lost. The Council was too strong, too organized, too prepared. But he had never seen anything like this. The human ships did not fight the way other species fought. They did not form lines. They did not follow patterns. They moved like a swarm of insects. But each one seemed to know exactly what the others were doing, without any communication that the Council's sensors could detect. Council warships tried to respond. The mighty dreadnoughts of the Korthan Empire, the fastest cruisers of the Valari Dominion, the devastating plasma cannons of the Thraxian Collective. All of them fired at the human fleet. The humans did not try to avoid the attacks. Instead, their ships seemed to absorb them. Energy weapons disappeared into dark hulls. Missiles exploded against shields that flickered with colors no one had ever seen before. And then, the humans fired back. Inside the council chamber, the representatives watched in horror. The great viewport showed their fleet dying. One by one, the mighty ships that had enforced galactic law for 10,000 years turned into expanding clouds of fire and debris. Her eyes were very cold. That was a mistake. General Stone had finished dealing with the guards. 47 of them lay on the floor, unconscious or groaning. He had not killed any of them. He walked back to stand beside the ambassador, flexing his hands. Dr. Chen was still looking at her scanner. Ambassador, I am detecting massive energy buildups in the station's core. The humans appear to be targeting the main reactor. They are not going to destroy the station, Cross said. Not yet. First, they want to make sure everyone understands what is happening. The viewport flickered. The image of the space battle disappeared. In its place appeared a face. A human face. It belonged to a man with dark skin and gray temples. He wore a military uniform, but it was not like any uniform the council had seen before. It was black with no decorations except for a single symbol on the chest, a blue circle with a white star. "This is Admiral James Washington of the United Earth Defense Force," the man said. His voice filled the chamber. "I am speaking to all members of the Galactic Council. Your fleet has been neutralized. Your station defenses have been disabled. You are now under our control." Screaming filled the chamber. Representatives tried to run for the exits. They found them sealed. Guards who were still conscious tried to fight. General Stone put them down with the same casual efficiency as before. Admiral Washington continued speaking. "For 10,000 years, your council has ruled this galaxy through fear and violence. You have destroyed species that did not submit. You have enslaved billions. You have decided who lives and who dies based on your own interests." The image shifted. Now it showed planets. Beautiful planets, with blue oceans and green continents. Then it showed the same planets after the council had finished with them. Burned, dead, empty. "We found records of what you did to the Silani," Washington said. "An entire species wiped out because they refused to give you their homeworld. We found records of the Vorn Collective, reduced to slavery because they developed technology you wanted. We found records of 17 other species who made the mistake of thinking they could negotiate with you." Vexillar's compound eyes were fixed on the screen. His mandibles had stopped moving. For the first time in his long life, he was truly afraid. "We are not like those species," Washington said. "We did not come to negotiate. We did not come to submit. We came to deliver a message." The image changed again. Now it showed Earth, the blue marble floating in space, clouds swirling over continents, lights glittering on the night side, where billions of humans lived their lives. "This is our home," Washington said. "You threatened it. You said you would quarantine us, enslave us, destroy everything we have built. You thought we would accept this because we are small, because we are new, because we do not have your 10,000 years of experience." His eyes seemed to look directly at Vexillar. "You were wrong." The image disappeared. The viewport showed space again, but now there was nothing left of the council fleet. Only debris and the flickering light of cooling metal. Ambassador Cross looked around the chamber. The representatives had stopped screaming. They were staring at the viewport in shock. Some were crying. Some were praying to gods the humans had never heard of. Some were simply frozen, their minds unable to process what they were seeing. "High Magistrate," Cross said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "I want you to understand something. We did not want this. When we first came here, we hoped for peace. We hoped you would see us as partners, not as subjects to be controlled." Vexillar found his voice. It came out as a whisper. "Then why? Why do this?" "Because you gave us no choice. Because you looked at our planet and saw resources to be taken. Because you looked at our people and saw slaves to be used. Because you made it very clear that in your galaxy there are only two kinds of species, masters and servants." Cross walked closer to the High Magistrate's seat. General Stone and Dr. Chen followed her. "We will not be servants," Cross said. "Not now, not ever. And we wanted to make sure that everyone in this chamber, everyone watching through their sensors and their spy devices, everyone in the entire galaxy understands this simple truth." She stopped at the base of his platform and looked up at him. "You threatened Earth. Look at your station." Look at how quickly everything you built can be taken away. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow everyone could still hear. And remember that we chose to stop here. We chose to let you live. We chose to give you a chance to change. The chamber was silent. The next time someone threatens Earth, Cross said, we will not be so generous. She turned and walked back to the center of the chamber. The sealed doors suddenly opened. Human soldiers stood in the corridors beyond. They were not pointing weapons at anyone. They were just waiting. High Magistrate, Cross called back over her shoulder. Your council has 24 hours to publicly acknowledge our sovereignty and withdraw all claims to human space. If you do not, we will demonstrate what happens when we choose not to hold back. She walked out of the chamber. General Stone and Dr. Shen followed her. And Vexillar, for the first time in 200 years, had no idea what to do next. The news spread across the galaxy, like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every species with access to communication networks knew what had happened at Station Zenith. The recordings played on millions of screens across thousands of worlds. The mighty Council fleet reduced to debris. The great chamber filled with terrified representatives. The human ambassador standing calm and cold while everything burned around her. On a small planet called Varus Prime, a young Valari named Shenka watched the recordings with wide eyes. She was only 12 cycles old, barely more than a child by her species standards. But she understood what she was seeing. "Mother," she said, her voice trembling, "what does this mean?" Her mother did not answer right away. She was staring at the screen with an expression Shenka had never seen before. It looked like fear and hope mixed together. "It means," her mother finally said, "that things are going to change." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. On mining worlds, where slaves worked until they died. On prison planets, where rebels rotted in cells. On homeworlds, where entire populations lived in fear of council judgment. Everyone watched. Everyone wondered the same thing. If the humans could do this, what else was possible? Back on Station Zenith, High Magistrate Vexillar sat alone in his private chambers. The emergency lights had been replaced with normal lighting, but he had ordered his windows dimmed. He did not want to see the debris field that had once been the greatest fleet in the galaxy. His aide, a small Korthan named Zixtal, entered quietly. "High Magistrate, the other council members are requesting an emergency session." "I know. They want to respond to the human ultimatum. Some are calling for immediate surrender. Others are calling for war." "War." Vexillar made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Against what? They destroyed 300 ships in less than an hour. Our best ships, our most advanced weapons. The humans lost nothing, not a single ship." Zixtal was quiet for a moment. "There must be something we can do." "Must there?" Vexillar turned to look at his aide. His compound eyes reflected the dim light. "For 10,000 years, we have controlled this galaxy because no one could challenge us. We had the biggest fleet, the most resources, the most allies. No single species could threaten us, and we made sure no alliance could ever form against us. The humans are only one species. Yes, one species that appeared out of nowhere with technology we cannot understand. One species that hid an entire fleet from our spies. One species that took apart our defenses like a child taking apart a toy." Vexillar stood up and walked to the window. He pressed a button, and the dimming field disappeared. The debris field glittered in the starlight. "Tell me, Zixtal, how did they do this? How did they hide so much from us?" "Our intelligence services are still trying to determine that." "Our intelligence services failed, completely and totally. They told us the humans had 50 ships. 50. I counted over 400 in that fleet. Where did they come from? How did they build them? How did they develop shields that absorb energy weapons?" Zixtal had no answers. On the human flagship, Ambassador Cross was having a very different conversation. Admiral Washington stood at the viewport of his ready room, looking out at the damaged station. His face showed no emotion. "Do you think they will accept?" he asked. Cross sat in a chair nearby. She looked tired. The calm mask she had worn in the council chamber was gone. Now she just looked like an old woman who had seen too much. "Some will," she said. "The smart ones. The ones who understand that pride is not worth dying for. And the others? They will try to fight. They will form alliances. They will call on old treaties and ancient debts. They will do everything they can to destroy us." Washington nodded slowly. "Then we have not ended anything. We have just started a war." "Yes." Cross stood up and walked to stand beside him. "But it is a war we chose, a war we prepared for, a war we can win." "At what cost?" Cross was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "I remember when we first made contact with the Council. I was so young, so hopeful. I truly believed that we could find our place in the galaxy through diplomacy, through cooperation. What changed? I met Vexillar." Cross's eyes hardened. "I looked into those compound eyes and saw nothing. No compassion, no curiosity, no interest in anything except control. He did not see me as a person. He saw me as a resource to be used or a threat to be eliminated." "And you decided then that war was inevitable?" "No. I decided then that we needed to be ready for it." Cross turned to face the Admiral. "The preparation protocol was not my idea. It started before I was born. Our grandparents looked at the galaxy and saw the same thing I saw in Vexillar's eyes. They knew that someday, something out there would threaten Earth, and they wanted their children to be ready." Washington was quiet for a moment. "The Council has no idea how long we have been preparing." "No, they think we are a young species that got lucky. They do not know about the hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt. They do not know about the research stations in deep space. They do not know about the thousands of scientists who spent their entire lives developing weapons they hoped would never be used. And now those weapons have been used." "Yes." Cross looked back out the window. "And the galaxy will never be the same." On Varus Prime, young Shenka was still watching the news feeds. The commentators were trying to explain what had happened. Some called the humans monsters. Some called them heroes. Some simply called them dangerous. But Shenka noticed something that the commentators did not talk about. In all the recordings from the council chamber, she saw the human ambassador standing calm and still. She saw the human general taking down guards without killing them. She saw the human scientist studying everything with curious eyes. They had not enjoyed what they did. They had not laughed or celebrated. They had been serious, sad even. And at the end, the ambassador had given the council a chance to surrender, a chance to avoid more destruction. Shenka thought about her own people. The Volari had been servants of the council for 1,000 years. They had learned to be quiet, to be obedient, to never dream of freedom. Maybe, Shenka thought, maybe it was time to start dreaming again. The 24 hours began to count down. Across the galaxy, everyone waited to see what would happen next. 18 hours had passed since the ultimatum. High Magistrate Vexillar stood before the emergency council session. The great chamber was only half full. Many representatives had fled to their homeworlds, terrified that the humans would attack again. Others were too afraid to leave their ships. Only the brave or the foolish remained. Vexillar looked out at the faces before him. He saw fear in most of them. But in some, he saw something worse. He saw calculation. They were already thinking about how to use this disaster for their own advantage. "The vote has been called," Vexillar announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "We must decide how to respond to the human ultimatum. All those in favor of accepting their terms, Signal now. Lights flickered across the chamber. Vexillar counted them automatically. 112 votes for surrender, out of 300 species. All those against. 147 votes against. The remaining representatives had not voted at all. They were waiting to see which way the wind would blow. The motion fails, Vexillar said. The council will not surrender. From the shadows at the edge of the chamber, a new voice spoke. That is unfortunate. Everyone turned. Ambassador Cross stood in an entrance that should have been sealed. General Stone and Dr. Chen flanked her, as always. Behind them stood a squad of human soldiers. They were not pointing weapons at anyone. They did not need to. How did you get in here? Demanded Counselor Thrax, a massive creature covered in spines. The chamber is sealed. Nothing is sealed from us, Counselor. Cross walked toward the central platform. The representatives closest to her moved away like water parting around a stone. We have been listening to your debate. We thought we should be present for the vote. He tried to make himself look strong. He tried to project authority, but his mandibles trembled slightly, and everyone saw it. You have no right to be here, he said. This is a council matter. High Magistrate, everything that happens in this galaxy is now our matter. Cross climbed the steps to stand beside him. She was shorter than him, but somehow she seemed to tower over everyone. You had 24 hours to accept our terms. You have 6 hours left. I came to offer you one final chance. We will not surrender, Vexillar said. We will fight. Other species will join us. The Thraxian Collective has already pledged their support. The Valari Dominion has surrendered to us, Cross interrupted. They contacted us 3 hours ago. They have agreed to all our terms in exchange for protection. Shock rippled through the chamber. The Valari were one of the founding members of the Council. Their fleet was the third largest in the galaxy. You are lying, said a Valari representative, rising from his seat. His blue skin had turned pale. Our leaders would never contact your homeworld, Cross said calmly. Ask them yourself. The representative pulled out a communication device. His hands were shaking. He spoke rapidly in his own language. Then he stopped. His eyes went wide. He looked up at Ambassador Cross with an expression of total disbelief. It is true, he whispered. They have withdrawn from the council. The chamber erupted. Representatives screamed at each other. Accusations flew like weapons. Someone threw something at the Valari representative. Guards tried to restore order, but they did not seem certain whose orders they should follow anymore. Through it all, Ambassador Cross stood still and watched. Her face showed nothing. General Stone leaned close to her. Ambassador, should we intervene? No. Let them see what they are. Let them understand what the Council really is when faced with a real threat. Cross's eyes moved across the chaos. 10,000 years of unity breaking apart in minutes. Dr. Chen was studying her scanner. I am detecting communications bursts from multiple representatives. They are contacting their homeworlds. Of course they are. They are trying to make their own deals before it is too late. After several minutes, the chaos began to fade. The representatives were exhausted, afraid. They looked at each other with new eyes. Old alliances meant nothing now. Old friendships were forgotten. Everyone was thinking the same thing. How do I survive? Vexillar raised his forearms for silence. He got it. Ambassador Cross, he said. His voice was steady now. He had made a decision. What exactly are your terms? It was not a kind smile. First, the Council will publicly acknowledge Earth's sovereignty over all human-occupied space. No exceptions. No negotiations. Agreed. Second, all species currently enslaved by Council members will be freed immediately. All slave operations will end. Protests erupted from several representatives. Their economies depended on slave labor. Cross ignored them. Third, the Council will pay reparations to every species it has wronged over the past 10,000 years. The amount will be determined by an independent tribunal. More protests. Cross continued ignoring them. Fourth, any species that wishes to leave the Council may do so without penalty. They will be free to make their own choices, form their own alliances, build their own futures. This time the chamber was silent. Everyone understood what this meant. It was about destroying it. And finally, Cross said, High Magistrate Vexillar will publicly apologize for threatening Earth. He will admit that the Council was wrong. He will acknowledge that humanity has every right to exist and grow in this galaxy. Vexillar stared at her. His compound eyes reflected the lights of the chamber like broken mirrors. You want to humiliate me. I want to send a message. Cross stepped closer to him. For 10,000 years, you have ruled through fear. You made species afraid to stand up, afraid to dream, afraid to be anything more than what you allowed them to be. Today that ends. Today everyone learns that the Council is not invincible, that it can be challenged, that it can be beaten. She turned to face the whole chamber. You have 6 hours to decide. Accept our terms, and your species will survive. Your worlds will remain. Your people will live. Reject our terms, and I will show you what happens when humanity stops holding back. Cross walked toward the exit. General Stone and Dr. Chen followed. The human soldiers fell in behind them. At the door, Cross stopped and looked back. 6 hours, High Magistrate. I suggest you use them wisely. The door closed behind her. Vexillar stood alone on the platform, surrounded by the chaos of a dying empire. He had ruled the galaxy for 200 years. He had crushed rebellions. He had destroyed species. He had believed that nothing could ever threaten his power. Now he had to make the hardest decision of his life. Surrender and live in shame, or fight and die with pride. The final hour arrived. High Magistrate Vexillar stood at the window of his chambers, watching the stars. The debris field from the destroyed fleet had mostly been cleared away. Human ships had done it, moving through the wreckage with quiet efficiency. They were already cleaning up the mess they had made. Or perhaps, Vexillar thought, they were just making room for more debris. His aide, Zixtal, entered. High Magistrate, the Council is assembled. They are waiting for your decision. Vexillar did not turn around. What do you think I should do, Zixtal? The young Corthan was quiet for a long moment. I think we have already lost. Whether we fight or surrender, the galaxy will never see us the same way again. The Council's power was built on the belief that we could not be defeated. That belief is gone now. So it does not matter what I choose. It matters to the people who will die if you choose wrong. Vexillar finally turned. He looked at his aide with something like respect. You are wise for one so young. I learned from watching you, High Magistrate. For 200 years, you kept the peace. You balanced power. You prevented wars that could have killed billions. That is worth something. And now you have a chance to do it again. One last time. Vexillar nodded slowly. He walked past his aide toward the door. Come, let us finish this. The council chamber was full for the first time since the attack. Every representative had returned. Some had been ordered back by their homeworlds. Others had come on their own, understanding that this moment would shape history. Ambassador Cross stood on the central platform. General Stone and Dr. Chen were with her, as always. But, this time, there were no soldiers behind them. They stood alone, surrounded by the representatives of 300 species. Vexillar walked to his seat, the highest seat in the chamber. He looked down at the human ambassador and felt something strange. It took him a moment to identify it. Respect. He had spent his life looking down on other species, seeing them as lesser, seeing them as tools to be used, or obstacles to be removed. But Ambassador Cross had never looked at him that way. She had looked at him as an equal. An opponent, yes. An enemy, perhaps. But an equal. Ambassador Cross, Vexillar said. His voice echoed through the silent chamber. The Council has considered your terms. Cross tilted her head slightly. And? Many of my colleagues wanted to fight. They argued that surrender would show weakness, that other species would see us fall and turn on us, that we would lose everything we have built. They may be right. Perhaps. But I realized something while watching your ships destroy our fleet. Vexillar leaned forward. You held back. Your weapons could have destroyed this station in seconds. Your soldiers could have killed everyone in this chamber, but you did not. Why? Cross was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. Because we are not like you. Explain. For 10,000 years, the Council has ruled through destruction. When you faced a problem, you eliminated it. When you feared a species, you crushed it. You taught the galaxy that power means the ability to kill. Cross climbed the steps toward Vexillar's seat. No one tried to stop her. The guards had all run away long ago. We have that power, she said. We could kill every council member in this room. We could destroy every fleet you have left. We could bomb your homeworlds until nothing remains but dust. We have the ability. She stopped just below his seat, looking up at him. But ability is not the same as purpose. We did not come here to destroy. We came here to change. Change what? Everything. Cross turned to face the chamber. The Council ruled through fear, because fear was all you understood. But there is another way. A way where species work together because they choose to, not because they are afraid. A way where power is used to build, not to destroy. A way where every species has the chance to grow and dream and reach for the stars. She turned back to Vexillar. We are offering you that chance. All of you. Accept our terms, and the old council dies. But something new can be born. A real alliance. A true partnership. One where humanity stands beside you as equals, not above you as masters. Vexillar stared at her. He had expected threats. He had expected demands. He had not expected hope. And if we refuse, then we will do what we must to protect ourselves. But we would rather build than destroy, High Magistrate. That is the truth. The chamber was silent. Every representative was watching. Every species in the galaxy was watching through their sensors and their spies. Vexillar thought about his life. 200 years of power. 200 years of control. He had done terrible things in the name of peace. He had made choices that haunted him in the dark hours of the night. He had told himself it was necessary, that there was no other way. But here was another way, standing right in front of him. He stood up slowly. His 4 arms hung at his sides. He looked out at the chamber one final time. The Council accepts your terms, he said. The chamber erupted. Some representatives cheered. Some wept. Some sat in stunned silence. But no one protested. The moment had passed. Vexillar descended the steps until he stood face to face with Ambassador Cross. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Vexillar did something he had never done before. He bowed. Not a small bow of greeting, a full bow of respect, his 4 arms touching the ground. Ambassador Cross, he said, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize for threatening your world. I apologize for our arrogance, and I acknowledge that humanity has every right to exist and grow in this galaxy. Cross looked at him. Her face was unreadable. Then, slowly, she extended her hand. Vexillar had studied human customs. He knew what the gesture meant. He reached out with one of his forearms and took her hand. They shook, and across the galaxy, everything changed. On Verus Prime, young Shenka watched the ceremony with tears streaming down her face. Her mother held her close. "What happens now?" Shenka asked. Her mother smiled. It was the first real smile Shenka had seen on her face in years. "Now," her mother said, "we find out what we can become." Ambassador Cross returned to the human flagship later that night. She stood at the viewport, looking at the stars. General Stone and Dr. Chen found her there. "You did it," Stone said. "You actually convinced them to surrender peacefully. We all did it." Cross did not turn around. This was never about one person. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity is not what they expected. "And what are we?" Dr. Chen asked. Cross was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was the first real smile anyone had seen from her since the mission began. "We are proof," she said, "that even in the darkest times, hope is possible. And that sometimes, the monsters are not who they expect them to be." She turned to face her colleagues, her friends. "Come, we have a lot of work to do. A new galaxy is being born, and humanity needs to be there to help it grow." They left the viewport together, walking toward a future no one had ever imagined. And somewhere, in the stars, the children of Earth were just getting started.